ripping into today. So we'll get past the welcome slide. Same as usual, we're going to do some news. Then I'm going to throw across to Sam, who will do an introduction of himself and what CERT NZ is. Something that's come up a lot on the ISC Squared is about communicating about breaches that we see and having a central hub to report them into. That's why we've got CERT NZ there. Then we've got some prizes, and if you were on the pre-show, we've got a couple of special prizes from our friends at Kensington, and Sam will be putting asking a question, and you'll just respond in the chat window. First two win, and then we'll open up for Q&A after the half hour. So what's coming up? Microsoft Inspire. So this is the highlight of the year for everything Microsoft. Don't know what's going to be announced this year. It's going to be a surprise for everyone. There hasn't been any sort of like clues, but expect some stuff around security as always, around granular delegated admin access, and also the identity piece. Learn is also migrating across, so our certificate portal is going to become part of Learn. So I imagine Microsoft will be addressing the skill shortage and making upskilling opportunities available to everybody. At the moment, it's just register and block the time out in your calendar, and it will be the 20th to the 21st in New Zealand time. So there's evening sessions. Everything is recorded and played at later times, which are more acceptable than the general 3 o'clock in the morning sessions that come out of Redmond. So going to be partner focused as per usual. The other one, which is new as of yesterday, is we're doing a big push on Defender for Business, the standalone version of it. So click on there and we'll contact you. What we're basically going to do is give you a credit for the first month of that. So it's some money back in your pocket, and it gives you some implementation money, if you like, to migrate people across from a third-party AV solution to a full-fledged EDR advanced threat protection offering. And this is going to be around your standard and basic bundles rather than the business premium, which includes it free anyway. Okay, all things Surface, and Rhonda is back with us, but I'll be doing the talking because she's still very coffee. So welcome back, Rhonda. Great to see you alive. Laptop Studio. So that bundle is still available with a whole lot of extras, so you can sell to your customers a great studio bundle with a whole lot of stuff thrown in for free. The other thing that's probably worth mentioning is that as a registered Surface partner, you have access to demo equipment, which you can buy at a heavily discounted price. So I know a lot of you have taken up the Surface offerings. We have some Surface Pro 7s, and if you buy one of those, not only do you get a discount, you also go in the draw to win a scooter, which is great from getting to the car park to the office, unless it's raining. It's very skiddy. All right, now we'll throw across to Sam. So Sam, if you want to grab control and do a bit of an introduction.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, speak a little bit about CERT NZ, who we are, what we do, and highlight some of the key ways that partners can interact with us. My name's Sam Leggett. I'm a senior analyst in the threat and incident response team, and I'll start off with just a very quick introduction of CERT NZ. So CERT NZ is the Computer Emergency Response Team for New Zealand. We come under the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment, and essentially we exist to help improve the cyber resilience and online safety of all New Zealanders. Our BAU work is to receive online reports of cyber incidents and respond to those with some trusted, informative, actionable advice to help those individuals work through that cyber incident. We work with anyone that might be facing a cyber incident, so not just individuals. If there's a small to medium enterprise or a large organization, we're also there to offer advice there as well. Important note to make, though, is that where critical national infrastructure or organisations of national significance are involved, that's when our colleagues at the NCSC will step in for assistance in the incident response. The link I've got there on the slide just is our reporting tool, so our online form that anyone can use to report a cyber incident through to us. Topics that we'll cover today: And I'll be bringing each point back round to how this involves some interaction with partners. But we'll go over our quarterly reports, our critical controls, 10 critical controls, our phishing disruption initiative, and then one of the pieces of material that we've produced recently, our ransomware lifecycle diagram. So without any hesitation, we'll jump into the first one, quarterly reports. So I do apologize for the font on this one. That's a little bit hard to see with black on black, but we will talk through some of those in a bit more detail. So quarterly reports are something that we release every financial quarter. And what it is basically trying to provide some insight into the incidents that we're seeing reported to us, breaking those down into the different categories of incidents, and just trying to provide some actual insight into the threat landscape of New Zealand. The link there will take you to a page where the latest quarterly report is available, as well as our data landscape report. So that's slightly different in the sense that it really gets into the data, and we try to use some anonymized data to show things like where people are reporting from, where in New Zealand, might be Auckland, Wellington, things like that, what kind of sectors are reporting what kind of incidents. It's just a bit more an in-depth breakdown of the data itself. So if anyone's curious to have a read of that, I encourage you to head to that link there. Some of the interesting points from the latest quarterly report, we've responded to 2,333 incidents in the last quarter. Now that is significantly down from previous quarter. It's about a 44% decrease from the previous quarter. And that is mostly attributable to the FluBot malware campaign that was going around in the last quarter. That saw significant numbers of malware being reported through to us. And with that having fallen off, an interesting note on that is that through a multi-law enforcement agency effort in Europe, they've actually managed to take down some of the critical infrastructure involved in the FluBot malware campaign. So the reports of those have slowed up pretty significantly, and that's resulted in our overall reports going down as well. And you'll see that reflected in the little graph here. It's the fourth one down where it says malware. That's gone down. I think it's a 90% decrease in that one. So a really significant drop, and that is largely attributable to FluBot reports falling off. Financial loss, last quarter we saw $3.7 million reported in financial loss, direct financial loss from cyber incidents, and that again is a big decrease from the previous quarter. So I think that one's a 41% decrease from the previous quarter. And the reason for that is what we found was during the last quarter, there was a significant increase in financial loss due to scams involving buying and selling goods online. It's possible that this is related to COVID and lockdowns. Everyone's buying stuff online at the time, and it makes the surface for scams a lot more widespread. So significant decrease, but still 3.7 million in direct financial loss. So a very significant amount being lost through cyber incidents there. And then another interesting note there is that ransomware reports have increased 31% from the previous quarter. So that's the biggest increase that we've seen from last quarter to this quarter. And what we've seen is that mostly those ransomware reports are around network attached storage devices being hit by ransomware. Deadbolt's a big one that we're seeing a lot of reports of at the moment. So that's where that increase has come from. And like I say, that's the biggest increase that we've seen from previous quarter to this one. And I suspect that will continue to increase as time goes on. So quarterly reports, what is really important about quarterly reports is reporting through to us. We can only report back on the things that are actually reported through to us. And so this creates a good avenue for engagement. As a partner, if you notice a cyber incident, even if you're reporting that through to us as an FYI basis, it helps us build our landscape reporting, make it more comprehensive, and show a bigger picture of what's actually happening in New Zealand. So even if it's an FYI basis, you don't need any advice or assistance, reporting it through to us is still a great idea wherever possible. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is add too much extra work. If you're actually responding to an incident, things can be very high pace. So even if it's something that you look at doing after this sort of immediate response has been handled, that would be great. The next one we have is our 10 critical controls. So this is something that we review every year, and basically what it is 10 controls that we see as most important for individuals. It's really the sort of first three are more focused at individuals, but organizations as well that they can implement to have the biggest sort of impact to their cybersecurity posture. There were two that were changed from last year to this year. So asset lifecycle management is a new one there. Excuse me. asset like lifecycle management is a new one there, and basically what that is talking about is having a clear, up-to-date picture of all the assets in your environment, tracking them through each cycle as well. So not just you're setting it up, it's as well as it's implemented in your BAU practice, but also when it actually reaches that legacy point, it's no longer supported by the vendor, and that should be alerts to you to sort of start changing that to something that is going to be supported by the vendor for the future. And then implement application control was a new one as well. And that's come from application whitelisting or allow listing. So it's a little bit more robust than the previous control. Basically what it means is having certain controls in place so that you can be sure what applications are able to run on your systems, not allowing any sort of malware that might have been downloaded from an email attachment or a dodgy web page to actually execute on your environment. Again, what's really important with reporting through to us in terms of our critical controls is that the more incidents we see happening in the New Zealand context can inform us what controls are actually going to be important to include on this list. It informs how we sort of construct the list. So reporting through to us also informs when things might actually come off that list and something new might be added on there. So again, it all comes down to visibility across what's actually happening in New Zealand, and that really highlights the importance of reporting through to us. Sorry, the link at the bottom there will take you through to our critical controls. I believe you can also see previous versions if you were curious to see what has been on there in the past, but that page will also go a little bit more in depth into each individual control. So next is our phishing disruption service, and this is a little bit more, rather than you providing something to us, reporting through to us, this is something that we can provide to organizations out there. So in a nutshell, a phishing disruption service, basically we ingest phishing IOCs or indicators of compromise from the reports that we receive from individuals or organizations, as well as various feeds from agencies around New Zealand, big organizations around New Zealand. And what we do is we triage each one of these indicators. An analyst here at CERT NZ will look at the indicator, will verify that this is a genuine indicator of compromise, it's a genuine indicator of phishing. Then they'll publish that through to our API, taxi service API. That API can then be ingested by partners, plugged into their security systems that they have in their environment, and essentially will start blocking those IOCs whenever an employee in that environment tries to access that website. So the real benefit here is that it's New Zealand context. All the reports that we're triaging in this service have come from somewhere in New Zealand, and it's also a high trust, high confidence system. So each individual IOC is actually looked at by an analyst and verified that there is phishing going on there. So I think our track record is pretty good. I don't believe we've blocked any genuine websites to date, touch wood. But again, it's that New Zealand context, and it's timely as well. We try to stay on top of it as much as possible. So it can go straight through to the people that are ingesting the IOCs and actually start doing what it's meant to do and start blocking access to those websites. So actually having a look at that in practice, this is just very limited data on some partners that are ingesting the API that had the capacity to report back some telemetry to us. And this is only from a couple partners across a couple months, but you can see that the IOCs are actually appearing and they are being blocked. So one note that I do want to make on the left there, that isn't the organization that's reported the telemetry back to us. That is the brand of the phishing scam that particular IOC has come under. So NZ Post, NZTA are the two top ones there. Again, New Zealand context, that makes sense. And you can actually see that across 2 months, a couple organizations, there's a pretty decent number of hits there of blocks that have actually occurred where people within the environment have attempted to go to these websites, have attempted to resolve to these IP addresses, and they've been blocked. They haven't actually been able to get there, which is great because it takes the risk out of that individual's hands rather than hitting that link at the bottom there. That link is for the API itself to have a look at the criteria. Apologies that link isn't working, but I will happy to provide a working link afterwards.
I also put the slides and everything into the shared folder, which is accessible to everyone. So you can review.
Sweet. Yeah, so that's just basically a look at that the phishing disruption initiative actually working, actually in practice, having hits and having blocks. So it's good to see that it's actually working. And this again is both something that can be ingested by partners, but can also be improved by partners. Again, it all comes down to the reporting coming through to us. So if there's phishing out there that you're aware of, we have an email address which I should have included here. My apologies. I will make sure that that's included in the slides before they go out. It's an email address that you can report a phishing email directly to. It's a system that's set up to pull particular information out of the email itself, and from there it goes straight into our system for triaging and analysis. So reporting any phishing through to us is going to make its way into the API and then in turn out to individual organizations that are ingesting the API. So the next one I want to talk about is our lifecycle of ransomware diagram. Very quickly, I'm sure everyone here knows what ransomware is, but malicious software that looks to stop access to computer systems and files until a ransom is paid. It's probably the most disruptive incident that we see for organizations especially. It's not just disruption to your actual operation, but if you do end up paying that ransom, there's a monetary loss there, but also if your operation is taken offline, there's potential monetary loss there as well, but also reputational loss. So a hugely disruptive incident. And that's where our lifecycle of a ransomware diagram came into play. Basically, what we wanted to do is produce a piece of material that could help people understand the life cycle of a ransomware, how it works and how it moves from sort of initial intrusion all the way through to actual impact on the victim. What you'll notice here is that there's 3 different segments. So it's got that initial access. The second segment is that consolidation and preparation, and that's where the attacker is in the system and they're moving laterally, trying to get as much access to the system as possible. And then the third one there is impact on the target. So that's where the data, the files are actually locked down. Access is taken away and a ransom note is provided. As you move from left to right on the diagram, there's a scale of time there, but it is important to note that that scale can change. It's not uncommon for attackers after they gain access to a system to actually sit in there for months, weeks, maybe just days, but it can differ depending on the attack. It's very, very common for attackers sitting there trying to get as much access to as wide a wider look at the system as possible. What you also notice is the little hexagons that are placed on there along those little arrows, and what they are is a lot of them actually correlate directly with our critical controls, and those are basically security measures that can be put in place to sort of stop the attack at that point. So, for example, one of the most common intrusion vectors is valid credentials that are obtained through phishing, and you'll notice that there's a few things there. 2FA is one of them, multi-factor authentication, 2-step authentication, all these different names for the same thing, but it adds that second layer of protection. So even if those valid credentials are obtained through phishing, the attacker probably won't be able to access the system still because that multi-factor authentication is in place. And this is an example of the kind of material that is available on our website, free to use. And we're always trying to produce more material like this that's actually usable by industry. So that link there on that page will take you through to a bit of a guide on ransomware, but we'll also include that diagram there. Again, free to use for anyone that might have some benefit from sort of displaying like a diagram about ransomware. And there's plenty of other materials on our site that are free to use as well. And that wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about. But if there were any questions from the audience, I'd be more than happy to take a few of those.
Shall we save questions to the end?
Yeah.
And then we can turn off the recording and people can ask questions that they think are done. But it's great to sort of like see the alignment there with what we talk about at Microsoft with the zero trust, verify credentials, assume breach, and segment your network, which speaks to a lot of the controls around there. Also, the change in ransomware from just being ransoming to stealing the data, I think is the big thing that we've sort of like seen in the last year, 2 years.
Yeah, so, we've definitely seen the same, and what we've actually seen is it creates sort of a 2-pronged attack. So they lock down the system, the data, the files, and then potentially victims actually pay a ransom only to find that another ransom is requested because they're threatening to release that data. So it just makes the disruption and the damage of ransomware even more prolific.
Yeah, and it's a great thing for our partners to, well, for you partners to go out and start talking about, you've got some localized data. So one that comes up, and it came up yesterday, is that I'm an SMB. No one targets me. My response to that is that you are not targeted. A burglar doesn't target your home. It's just opportunistic. If your credentials are out there on the web, someone suffered a breach on Facebook or something like that, then they'll find out where you work and see if you're using the same credentials, log in, and then elevate their privileges and go down that MITRE ATT&CK framework. But just remember that there's a control that you can put in at each step of that as the kill chain to mitigate their damage that they do. So yeah, we're going to do the questions and everything at the end of it. So just for upcoming episodes, next week we've got Shakra from Neural Impact in Canada joining us. So that's a good one around defining your offerings, building a solution, working out who your customers should be, and going from there. And then probably relevant to today, on the 6th of July, I've got Sergey joining me from Russia, one of my Microsoft colleagues who does ethical offensive hacking, so one of the white hats, and he will show you some how an attack is launched, once we've got credentials as a user, least privilege, and then elevating those privileges. Right. So giveaways, we're going to do the apron and the coffee mug, but our friends at Kensington, and this speaks to a lot around two-factor authentication, but the way we want you to go at Microsoft is to go passwordless, get rid of the damn things, use biometrics or passwordless, and Rhonda's on the call. If you've got a Surface, great, you've got Windows Hello for Business there, which is not using a password. If you aren't fortunate enough to have a Surface device or a modern PC with the camera and fingerprint thing, these are a great option. Also a great option for businesses where the employees go, I do not want an authenticator on my phone. I don't want any business stuff on my personal phone. Brilliant. Just one of these will do. Plug it in. Perfect for hospitals. There's even a RFD tag one that you can plug in and then swipe your RFD tag on it to log in. So if you're a doctor and you need to revive someone in a hurry, you don't need to worry about your fingerprint or even typing in a password, that sort of carry on. So Sam, have you thought of some good questions for us?
I have. I've got one in mind. So from previous quarter to this quarter, what incident did we see the greatest increase in?
That's a toughie. So type your response in the chat window, and first two will give away a Verimark fingerprint key and a Verimark desktop fingerprint key. It's one of them.
Right.
So what's the correct answer, Sam?
The correct answer there was ransomware.
Okay, so yeah, there were two correct answers there. So congratulations, Mark and Anthony. If you could flick an email to, I think I've got it on the next slide, onpoint@dickerdata.co.nz with your delivery address, and I will get those in the mail for you in the next couple of days. And thanks to Kensington for providing those. They are going to provide some for some future sessions as well, so keep on tuning in to see what you get. So Alan has got FYI ransomware 300%, botnet 600%.
Yeah, I do stand corrected on that one. Botnet was a 600% increase. The reason that was not in my mind is because that increase is due to only having a single report in the previous quarter. That's why ransomware was the top one in my mind. Apologies about that.
Okay, guys, I am going to stop the recording. So if you have any questions for